the future certainly looks bright, but it isn't without its darker sides. According to some predictions, obesity will likely run rampant, and political corruption will become so commonplace as to be accepted. People with nothing entertaining or informative to say will broadcast their demands for attention, and once beloved performers will become pushers of snake oil. Perhaps worst of all will be the emergence of a deadly and potentially devastating disease. Think of the last time that you contracted influenza. You were likely bedridden for days, having no appetite or desire to play games. Experts predict that by the year 2020, a new virus will rise, spreading from somewhere in Asia to the rest of the world. And with international travel being available to even the most common citizen, a sickness which would have been contained in years past will quickly spread to all corners of the globe.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Coming to you from the studio, located in the Nemesis stars, planet Earth. The transmission, transmission, try the best, try the best.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a lift-off.
Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keane. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, and check us out, www.thebestdampodcast.tv. Follow me, Instagram, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, @TheRealBestDamn, and wherever you're watching from, guys, please make sure to hit that like, give us a thumbs up, share this link, get it out there. That way new people can find us and spread it far and wide. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. And don't forget, subscribe, click that bell. That way you guys can get all of the notifications. And keep in mind, guys, we are completely viewer powered. That means we're fully funded and supported by you, the wonderful listener and the viewer. The donation links are in the description box below, and they should be scrolling through the chat tonight if my bot works correctly. That's PayPal, Venmo, Patreon, Cash App, and Facebook Messenger Pay. And to everyone who will donate and has donated, big ups. Big thanks to you guys. Tomorrow night will be the private show over on the Best Damn Podcast Discord. I was going to do it tonight, but I switched it. Tomorrow night will be the private show. We will probably be doing it at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm trying to do them earlier if they're on the weekdays. So yeah, that'll be for everybody that has donated and supported in the month of August. It's $35 a month if you want to join the Best Damn Fam. You get access to the private live shows on Discord, as well as the entire Best Damn Fam private and uncensored content Dropbox, which is over 100 videos, hours and hours long, merch, posts, all types of cool stuff if you're interested in joining that. But everybody who donates in the month of August, whether you gave $1 or $100, gets to watch the private shows live over on Discord tomorrow night before the video. Just mention @John Keane and let me know the platform that you used to donate on. So just put like PayPal and the date you donated in August, and I'll upgrade your role to Best Damn Fam, and then you'll have a whole month's worth being able to watch the private shows over on Discord with us. This one will not be streamed out live on anything else, just privately, and it's going straight to the Dropbox. So just giving you guys a heads up. Also, if you have donated and supported, or you'd like to book a personal tarot reading or a soul profile, the tarot readings are $50. The soul profiles are $100. You do it all the same way. Text 513-393-2396, 513-393-2396, or you email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com, and you either put tarot reading, soul profile, or Dropbox links. That way I know which one you're actually messaging me for. And if you do book a personal tarot reading, I'll get you taken care of within 24 hours of payment. Soul profile is 3 days because it's a little bit more homework. And on the readings too, I can do it either your own personalized video, or we can sit down on Discord and do it. The tarot readings take about 30 to 45 minutes, and the profile takes about an hour or more. So it's really fun, really cool. Yeah. All right, man. Thank you. Let's go ahead and get started. I've got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight anyway, so I don't want to talk too much. A lot of cool things that are going on. Let's see what we got in the chat here. Let's see what we got in the chat tonight. Okay, and big ups and big thanks to everybody, man. I appreciate you guys so much. I can't even begin to express my gratitude to each and every one of you guys for just taking the time to watch the videos, to join the servers and the groups, and to, engage and participate the way that you do. I think it's amazing, and it says a whole lot about you guys as people and your character, and just how committed you are to learning and working on your own craft, if you will, for lack of a better word, and your own spiritual development, as well as just learning what the truth is. Right now, everything seems to be all about obfuscation, right? They're like obfuscating everything. And there's a lot of haze in the air when it comes to what's going on. Like, shit's real murky right now. And I believe that's intentional. It's to keep people distracted, to keep people in the dark. That way we don't know our ass from a hole in the ground. That way, if things do, hit the fan, if shit does get a little turbulent, no matter where you're at in the world, it's like the powers that be kind of got to jump on you that way. So it's kind of up to us to really stick together, to really make sure that we're responsible for ourselves being informed on what's going on in the world. Kind of number one, it's up to you to stay informed. You can't depend on the media. You can't depend on Big Brother, your family, your friends. None of those people are going to, are going to make sure you're where you need to be when it all goes down. And none of those people are going to make sure that you get the perspective that's going to serve you best, right? And that's really what it's all about. You learn that on your spiritual journey, especially, is that if you don't love yourself, if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't develop yourself, then you really can't do nothing for nobody else, right? So I think a lot of people are finding that out in the truth community as well. It's like, well, if I don't really have all my ducks in a row, and I'm not where I want to be, and I'm not in alignment, and I'm not living in my purpose, and I'm not seeing through all the bullshit, then how can I really go on Facebook and make these posts and preach to others? Or how can I really go to my friends and family and try to tell them what's going on when I don't really have a clear idea myself? And I think that that's what gets a lot of people in trouble, because then you're backpedaling on shit that you said before. People start seeing you as wishy-washy and all over the place, and then they don't believe what you're saying, right? You can discredit your own self, guys, by getting bad information, or just kind of being to and fro, all over the place with the things that you do believe and statements that you do make. So make sure, no matter what you're doing, if you're out there trying to wake others up, and I know a lot of you guys are, if you're out there trying to wake others up, make sure you got info, to back that shit up. Don't just say, oh, well, it's just a feeling. Or, the Bible said, that may work with some people that are super religious, but that's why on this channel we hit it from so many different angles. That way there's no disputing, the things that we're sharing and the things that we're saying. It's like, okay, well, if you don't get down with prophetical things and biblical and scriptural things, well, that's cool. We'll look at it from a scientific angle, right? And it's like, if you're not down with the scientific, right, we'll look at something that's observable evidence that you can see with your eyes, that, people have eyewitnessed and shit like that, right? Like, so you got to kind of, and some people need more than that. They're like, no, I want to see, something even deeper. And that's why we go into the astrological and all of that, man. It's like, okay, we need to understand that the truth is always self-evident and it stands on its own. So if it is true, I promise you, and this shit is true all across the board, it will bear itself out. It will stand on its own and it will prove itself in every arena. And even if science and religion and government, and all of that hasn't caught up to, what we're talking about yet, or some of what we're talking about on this channel, and a lot of us are talking about in, spiritual circles, there's some information out there that is in that realm, and it will, kind of prove what you're saying. You just got to dig deep sometimes. And I promise you, if you do your homework, you do your due diligence, you do your research, so to speak. I hate that too. Anybody ever get into, you're like a post on Reddit and some motherfucker, makes a statement about something that you've said, and they're like, you counter their argument. You're like, yo, what you just said was bullshit, bro. And they're like, do your research. It's like a big cop-out for them to not actually back up anything they say. But I mean it, though. Like, do your research. For real, for real. And I think that that's what we do on this channel. We're doing our research live and in real time. And we're dissecting not only what the mainstream media, but alternative media is putting out there. Because in my opinion, I kind of have like this Jungian belief on the way that reality works. And I do believe that we project, reflect, whatever, right, our conscious reality, and humanity's psyche, or our collective spirit is manifest in everything. So that's why we see, like scripture, which the base word is script, right, be kind of like the script to the program. It's that cyclical nature of reality that plays itself out over and over and over again. That's why there's nothing new under the sun, which kind of gives credence to we're probably living in a holographic simulation of sorts. See it play out in the constellations astrologically, in the stars. We see it play out in world events geopolitically. The shit's even self-evident on metaphysical levels, anatomical levels, metaphorical, allegorical. I mean, you name it, right? So that kind of gives credence to that. Like, yeah, whatever's going on the inside definitely seems to be projected externally everywhere you look. So that's good news for us, though. You want to know why? That means however you perceive the world, too, right? So it's not just a collective and what we got going on collectively. Sure, our shared collective experience is going to reflect the shared collective consciousness. But, big but, our individual conscious perception dictates our individual lives and experience. Now, to me, that's good news. To me, that's absolutely wonderful news, and maybe that's what Jesus was talking about when he was talking about the good news, right? Preaching the good news. That's how you're saved from everything. It's through faith, right? It's by believing. Well, through faith is just, your thoughts and intentions being pointed in a positive direction of things that are unseen. So if we have this idea of the world that we're actually in control, and the way that we view it, the way that we see it, shapes the way that we experience it, well, then it doesn't have to be a bad thing no matter what we see taking place around us. If we point our compass towards positivity, if we point our compass towards love, unity, and we lean on one another that are all trying to do the same thing here. Like if you're in this family, if you're in this group, my belief is that you're probably onto a lot of the same shit, right? You believe a lot of the same things. You look into a lot of the same stuff. You have a lot of the same concepts that I do, and that's why you watch. Or you have similar ones at the very least. And if we're all kind of pointing in these directions, well, then we have a big chance that we can impact not only the collective and the entire experience as a whole, but we can dramatically focus our energy within our own individual lives and with our own small group we have here, and actually make our lives better and focus that energy and begin to attract things that are far more desirable than what we've been getting in cycles from the past. Think about it. Most of us, we got to the place we're at today because we've been beat down by the world, right? It's had to take a bunch of L's to kind of get us to where we're at now, right? To humble us enough to be able to truly learn, realize we don't know everything, and get humble enough to learn, truly learn. Or a lot of us has had to encounter a lot of different people, a lot of different places, situations, and some of it wasn't always comfortable. Some of it was very uncomfortable, traumatic, or, really hard. And it's made us to be to where we're able to adapt now to people that are different than us, right? And where we have such different perspectives on the world, whether it's our political points of view or our spiritual points of view, right? It doesn't matter. Where we're so different in the way that we see things, it allows us to be able to accept others that are different than us as well, right? And that's a true gift right there, because most people fear what they don't understand, and most people, they just absolutely silence anything that is a dissenting voice from the status quo, or, whatever the majority believes in, right? And you won't find that here. You can come here and be a flat earther or a round earther. It's not going to make a difference. Nobody's going to give you a hard time either way. It's up to you, how you see the world. It's your experience. And I think it's also taught us that it's so important not to dwell on those little things, the little differences, right? Because if we focus on what makes each and every one of us different, or what we disagree on, well, we'll do nothing but, fight and have conflict, for eternity. And that's the whole divide and conquer mentality. That's why they create all of these different labels and separate us the way that they do, the way we're constantly focused on our differences and we're attacking and opposing each other instead of focusing on the big problems, right, and big solutions, and how we can actually make a difference and how we can actually make our lives better. So if we focus on the things that we do share and that we do have in common, I think we get a lot further that way. And that's one of the things that this group really does well, right? Is try to stick together on the things that we're all in together on. And one thing we're all in together is we all agree that love is key. That love is the answer, and that God is love. So if we act out of love, if we act out of selflessness, and we do things from that place, then we're always going to find ourselves not only in a good karmic position, storing up good dharma, good chi, good energy, however, you want to see it. We're doing it on a spiritual level, putting good money in the bank, basically. But we're also putting that out into the world for others to experience, and attitudes are contagious. If you come into a building and you have a shit attitude, chances are you're going to get a shit reception. And if you come in somewhere and you're happy and you're putting on peace and prosperity, you spread that around as well. I'm telling you, that's my whole theory behind social distancing and shit. You know what I mean? That 6 foot radius, because our heart generates an electromagnetic field the largest of our body, with a 6-foot radius. Right? So it's like if you have a super high conscious person that's generating nothing but, peace and happiness and goodness in their field, well, you don't want their field interacting with others because it's so contagious. We want to keep everybody separate, isolated, in the dark, full of distortion and feeling like dog shit. You're way easier to control if you're always distracted by bullshit. You're way easier to control if you're blinded by rage and by anger. These all are, tactics, and mechanisms and devices that are used to keep you oppressed, that are used to keep you from blossoming into your full potential, into the person that you were that you are meant to be, and from finding your true calling and your true purpose, man. So let's jump into this. I know I've been on the soapbox a lot lately. I don't know what's up with me. Like the last couple of videos, I don't even know if I even did videos. I just talked for like fucking 2 hours. But it's like I just say what's on my mind, and when I see the chat too, the chat's been totally amazing. It's like the comments in the chat, man. It's like some of that shit just needs to be addressed. That's what it's all about, is our shared experience. And guys, I want to say too, it may feel like you're not, but you're doing a hell of a job out there. Like, we're making a difference. If we wasn't making a difference, we wouldn't see that they are literally altering community guidelines on social media platforms and shit to try to stop certain types of information. If we wasn't doing our job and making a difference, they wouldn't be coming up with international laws to try to stop the information, right? The censorship, shadow banning, cancel culture, all of those things would not exist if we wasn't putting a big fucking dent in the armor of the man. So I just want people to know that. We just got to keep chugging, keep pushing forward. And I think we're about there. Like, to me, if you look at the world, and we're going to get into this now too, the weather is getting quite chaotic. This includes solar weather, all right? To me, and this is on a serious note, to me, this is indicative of major changes that are just on the horizon, right? I told you guys that we had this whole Jupiter retrograde time, that as Jupiter went into Pisces, and the new moon, in the 8-8 Lions Gate, like all of these different things, I have this time of beauty and manifestation and prosperity and abundance according to your natal chart and all of that. Not everybody's going to get as good of an experience depending on how you connect to Jupiter. That's why you should book a reading with me. You find that out, but I digress. But most of us will, right? Most of us will. And now we're coming, I think we're 6 days away from new moon in Virgo. So this is like the last burst of beauty, the last burst of big energy for us before we start heading into what I believe will be a little bit darker days around the month of October. So to me, we're starting to see the weather now get a little bit more hectic. The climate has been very chaotic. Let's not even pretend like it hasn't. But I think we're going to get closer and closer shaves with, destruction, chaos, and cataclysm now. We're going to see the birthing pangs, so to speak, intensify exponentially over the next month or so. And when we go into October, I think things are really going to start to rock and roll. In particular, geopolitically, we've already seen the things that are taking place in Taiwan. North Korea is starting to pop off again. And we know that this is all theater. We know it's all theater, okay? So I'm not saying this to like put fear in your belly or anything like that. I'm trying to tell you this because this is how it works, right? They, and by they I mean the powers that be, they flow with the astrological energies the same way that a good magician does, right? Somebody that understands the way the stars work and the energy coming from the stars uses said energy to their advantage in their own spiritual development and growth. It's like, okay, if I know right now better be careful because I'm very prone to attract narcissistic people. Well, I'm going to avoid certain types, right? If I know that the stars aren't favorable for me in dating at a certain time, I'm probably not going to try to hook up with too many people, right? Common sense. And if you understand the way that these things work and you understand that there is a true science to this, it's not just, pseudoscience and metaphysical bullshit like you're told. Usually everything that they tell you is evil or pseudoscience or just, spiritual mumbo jumbo is usually the shit that's spot on, right? It's usually where our modern science actually derives from as well. Like, I don't care if it's chemistry or whatever, that comes from alchemy. You look at astronomy and all that, it comes from astrology. Like, so all the things that we see today came from these original sacred sciences, and different forms of hermeticism, which means to be sealed, right? This is sealed information, or what we would call the occult, which is occulted, which means to be hidden, right? And esoteric, right? It's internal, right? It's internal, not exoteric, or the external point of view. The external point of view is what the world gets to see. And this is what we see in religion. This is what we see in politics, right? This is what we see in every doctrine of the earth. Every school of thought on the earth is this external, physical, kind of lower-minded point of view when it comes to things. And anything that steps outside of that box, they're going to try to label with something that will discredit it. That way you'll stay away from it. And if it doesn't work through fear, well, that's evil, right? That's occult, that's dark, that's evil. Stay away from that. If you're not, driven away by fear because they said it was evil, then they'll use other methods and other terms like pseudoscience and all that to try to make it sound stupid. Or like there's not a scientific process behind it, or it can't be backed up in any way, shape, or form, just like they do with history by calling it mythology. Those are like historical accounts, and those historical accounts spread all the way across the goddamn world. Like there's, I think there's over 600, and I'm using my quote fingers, mythos pertaining to a deluge. Now, you tell me, okay? Let's just think about that for a second, right? It's a myth, right? A myth that there was a great flood, even though there is data when it comes to, the soil geological data showing that we've had, large floods, ice ages, all these things, right? Mass extinction events, multiple. We're actually on our 6th mass extinction event right now. And even though we have all of this, right, still it's considered mythos or mythology whenever we talk about these accounts, because mainstream science, mainstream history doesn't have the answers because it predates what they put in their textbooks. It doesn't fit into their nice little neat timeline because we're probably far older than we've ever been told, for one. For two, it doesn't fit in their timeline because they don't want you to know that this whole deal with I call it gradualism, where they tell you that we evolve, the planet evolves, the stars evolve, and everything evolves on this very, very minimalistic, gradual timeline where it takes millions and billions of years for one cataclysm to occur, and it's just not true, right? It's just not true. You can look at anything you want, but when you go back down to the soil and, carbon dating is all fucked up. And I believe they use carbon dating intentionally because it's so deceptive and gives these really wacky timelines for the way that things take place. So they want you to buy into it. So they're like, okay, we're going to, just like a PCR test, right? Can find any bacteria or molecule basically of anything, within the earth in the human body and amplify it and make it appear as if it's there, so they can find anything they want to with those. Same thing with like carbon dating. It's got like such a wide range of timeline in the testing. They can say, yeah, this was any time between 10,000 and 20,000, BC, right? When they really have no clue, what time it was. And if we really get down to brass tacks, it appears these cataclysmic events are happening far and far more frequent than we've ever been told. They actually seem to correlate more than likely with, and this is from my findings and these are my theories, with our great conjunctions and our celestial events. And there could have even been where like the story of Christ and the sun, the birth of the sun, rising again 3 days later, I feel like at one point in time there could have been such a direct correlation between the sun and these cycles that when the sun went through this process, there was actually catastrophic effects too. I doubt that's been for a long time. But maybe that's where it even started. A lot of the mythos with the sun and the precession of the equinox and all of this. We know that the precession of the equinox is included biblically when they talk about, the worship of the ram and the bull and, and all of, and now, Pisces, the fish, with Christ. And, now we're moving into the Aquarian age of man carrying the pail of water. So, those things are in there. They are, heavily misinterpreted or misunderstood, and I believe that's also intentional, through the churches, because if they got you in a mind frame of understanding the times and the days, and the Bible says like that no man knows the day or time, because time is fluid for one, and time is actually an illusion for two, right? It's just man's concept of, tracking our revolutions and orbits and cycles within, our reality. So yeah, that's why anytime you ever see prophecies and shit, they always, use astrological alignments to kind of date when it's going to happen, because that never changes. That is the true clock, the sky clock, right? The clock in the heavens lets us know, what time, what season we're at, and if the religious systems discount astrology, well, looking at the prophecy of like the woman and the dragon, Revelations 12, right? And they're telling you, no, there's going to be an actual woman standing in the sky on top of the moon with the sun over her shoulders, right? And she'll have an actual crown of 12 stars on her head, like giving you this fairy tale fabled version of it. That way you're always looking for, and for one, it mystifies religion in a way to where, it plays on our imagination. And if we play on our imagination, it gets us more engaged. So if we're like, thinking of an actual God named Jesus riding back on a cloud and coming to save us with a flaming sword, we're a lot more pumped up about it than when we find out that the story of Jesus is actually about each and every one of us and us becoming anointed in Christ and us becoming like the Son of God, right? Like it's not as hyped up that way, so that's one of the reasons that religion does that. And number two, most of these 501c3s and all these different groups are part of, they've been corporatized, right? So in order for them to keep that status and, make their money and be part of the system, which they are, if you don't think they are, then I think during the pandemic that should have proven otherwise to you when they were lining people up to participate and all that. Canceling church to do that too. That should have showed you right there what the religious system's actually a part of, and who they actually belong to. Because it's not God, in case you haven't caught on by now. So if they give you this exoteric perspective, this external perspective, you're looking outside of yourself too for answers. which means you'll go to other men for answers, like liars, fork-tongued liars that usually capitalize on people like they do in 501c3s and all of that. And you won't trust your inner knowing, your inner self. You won't be in tune with your inner knowing, your inner self, and that Holy Spirit that resides within you. You won't be in tune with none of that because you'll think it's all outside of you and that you're not worthy or not good enough to have that, which is crazy. And if you believe you don't have it, you'll never tap into it, you'll never experience it, and you'll never wield it in the world against the enemy. And remember, Christ came to the Pharisees and Sadducees. And that would be your modern day religious systems, by the way. The gods have never changed since the time of Christ. Just saying. And he told them, your father is the father of lies. And their gods have not changed. That's why he fashioned a whip and was flipping over the tables of the money changers, right? Because they were doing the same shit back then in churches are doing today. And when he said that this temple, would be destroyed and resurrected 3 days later, they weren't pissed because they thought he was predicting his own resurrection, and was talking about putting the capstone of illumination on his own self. His spiritual temple, the holy city, New Jerusalem. They were upset because they thought that he was talking about knocking down their fucking church. They had mega churches back then. This isn't a new phenomenon. And one of the things I think that crawls under people's skin the worst is when I start talking about, churches and religion and Christianity and all of that. They think I pick on Christianity. No, I don't. It's the largest religion in the world, meaning it has more influence than any of the other religions all across the world, so we can't ignore that, And when you're fed propaganda and stuff that says, we'll be persecuted during the end times, well, if you're the largest religion in the world, I'm sorry, friend, but that's the furthest thing from persecution I can think of, Persecution would be, like groups like this, where all of your messages are hidden, censored, silenced, where all of the great leaders and great voices from your group are killed, canceled, right? Silenced, harassed. That would be like, the real deal. That's what it would actually look like. Remember, it says that they would kill you thinking that they were doing the work of God. Do you see where this is all going now? They create these individual committees to go after domestic terrorism, and they call you extremist and shit like this. Why? Why? Because you just disagree with a few political policies, or you disagree with, the mainstream religions? That makes you a total dissident, a danger to society now? Shit. That's not an Orwellian dystopian future, is it? That's not persecution, is it? But you see, they flip it around, though. And they've got you convinced that if you're not part of the church, then, well, you're evil and you're persecuting them. It's like, nah, I don't think so. Don't think so at all. You guys are going right along with the agenda. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. You're saying exactly what they want you to say. And you're following the beaten path. You're not leading nothing. You're following. And if people are being saved through these different religions, it's not because God is in those buildings. It's because he's in the hearts of the people, and they sincerely want to make changes in their life, and they sincerely want to find find God or the source within themselves. That's the only reason. It wouldn't matter if they ever stepped foot into the building or they did it in their backyard. And Christ talked about that too with the Samaritan woman, right? He said there'd come a time they wouldn't worship in the temples or anything, right? Or the mountains, that they would worship in the spirit. That's the time we're in now. Where it's happening in the spirit. We don't need religion. We don't need limitation and restriction and all these different things to tell us who God is, to tell us what God is to us. This set of rules that says we go to hell if we don't follow them. And all-knowing, omnipotent, loving God is going to, toss you in the flames because you didn't get bound by the Saturnian death system's, piece of paper that says you're married before you had sex with someone? Don't think so. They're going to throw you in the flames of hell because you were true to yourself and loved who you loved if you're gay or lesbian? I don't think so, The last I checked, I'm not, but the last I checked, the people who are, they were born that way. I can't help who I'm attracted to. You know what I mean? Like, I love who I love. I like who I like. So who am I to say you're going to hell for who you like and who you love? And who are they to do it either? Or if we vote progressive or Democrat, we're going to hell now, too. By the way, I don't know if you guys caught the memo on that one. But if you're Team Blue, you're also going to hell now. And see, and this is how they get you. This is how they hook you. Hook, line, and sinker. They create these associations with different groups. And these groups appear to be grassroots movements. They do, right? The Trump movement, at first, damn, that shit looked like some grassroots movement, didn't it? Like the people choosing someone the people wanted. Someone who said, fuck the man, fuck the system. Let's take down Hillary. Let's expose those emails. All of it, right? And there was even a noble cause behind it, because there always has to be a noble cause behind it. Whether it's safety and security of 9/11, weapons of mass destruction of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Desert Storm, or it's child trafficking with QAnon. That's your noble cause behind it. It's to pull on your heartstrings, because you won't fall for the controlled opposition if you don't feel truly emotionally invested into it. And that's what the whole thing of like trolling and doxing and all of that, what they do to people that actually tell the truth, they do it to me a lot. People will bash me, badmouth me, take every opportunity they can to record me saying or doing something wrong, to like as if it proves that if I do something immoral or something wrong, that everything I say is untrue. Right? Well, that's not the only reason they do those things to people like myself and others, and I'm sure they've done it to you too. They do it because they're trying to remove that emotional attachment to it, right? That feeling of brother and sisterhood, They want to dehumanize me and you and anybody that's speaking the truth. They don't want us to look like, loving, good people at all. No matter how many mistakes we've made, predominantly most of us are, deep down in our cores. No matter how many fuck-ups we've had, It's not like any of us are walking around claiming that we're perfect. But if they demonize you, well then, they've kind of put a damper on that now, haven't they? People won't support you now because they're like, oh, well, he's a bad person, so what he's saying is no longer true, or why would I get behind this if he does this, this, and that, or she does that, that, and this? Do you see how it works? This is the first time you've been seeing it a bit. Yeah. You kind of got used to being invisible. Well, it's okay. All of us had our time to go in the shadows. We all have our time where we need to do the hermit thing. Where we need to take a step back and really just be ourselves and really just kind of take a breather from the different information and from people and all that. That's necessary, That's necessary. But ultimately, we need to make sure that we are, staying on top of each other and looking out for each other, because I shit you not, guys. Like, we really will be all we have, and we are all we have if you haven't noticed that yet. It's coming to that now, They put all these eggs in the same basket, so to speak. Right, so no matter if you are considered the leader or you're, just kicking it, it doesn't matter now. They've data mined all of your feeds and algorithms and, metadata and all of that, So they see you just the same as me. It doesn't matter who's speaking and who's watching. It doesn't matter, if you watch me once a year or, once a week. You watch others that are just like this, or you probably say and download and look into articles. They got it, is what I'm saying. So, we can't really trust that the outside society is going to do right by us when they went to so great of lengths and put in so much effort to isolate us, to segregate us, to demonize us. The only people we can really truly depend on to do right by us is us. And that starts with each and every one of us individually. But here we go. A volcanic eruption can devastate the world, and we aren't ready. Yeah, we're not ready. That's not news to anyone, but we'll look at it anyways. And here's the sad part. They could know that one was going to happen tomorrow, and they would not notify you of this. That's why when it comes to prepping, when it comes to any of these things, you have to understand what has taken place in the past when these cycles come to an end or come to a close, right? What's taken place in the past when the destroyers went by, or, when we've been hit by asteroids or magnetic reversals. And I think we do a good job on this channel at, illustrating what has happened in the past. We cover it quite a bit. Every show we talk about, previous extinction events and how they affected the Earth. So that's a good spot to start learning. And if we learn that, kind of what has happened and what we can expect this go around as well, we can also start to look into the signs and the symptoms, right? The Earth begins to show either right before or during these events. And I think that's where we're at now. It's like we're like trying to understand, okay, well, before said, event A, we know that the Doomsday Glacier breaks loose and that all that ice starts, generating tsunamis, worldwide. We know that's one big sign. So that whenever all this begins to happen, that the magnetic field becomes extremely turbulent and the Earth begins to perturbate. We know that. We know that whenever this begins to happen, that the currents and the jet streams begin to change directions, right, in the way that they flow. Well, we're seeing that. We know that as well. We know that when these events begin to happen, that crops and livestock are devastated by it, right? And that, whether it's monsoons and, fucking torrential rains that, it'll rain 10 years worth of rain in 30 seconds, or extreme droughts, that these are part of it as well. We're seeing that as well. We also know that we will see different things in the sky, too. The auroras, the colors, the heavenly bodies, the asteroids, the meteors, the fireballs, the comets passing. These are all, telltale signs of the times that we're in. We got that going on as well. We know that, and this is where the scientific shit becomes major in this, because we're now, and on this channel, I love that I don't feel like other people are doing it. And I'm not going to say why they're not doing it. I don't know. For real. Maybe they're just not there yet. And we know how consciousness works. We know that it just takes one, right, to have the knowledge and to start pushing that forward. And, we're in a group. So whatever I put out there, one of you guys, not only do you pick it up, but you'll capitalize on it and maybe take it further than what I did. I'll present a theory, and then one of you guys will bring, massive clarity to the theory, and even expound upon the theory, and then it begins to grow and spread like wildfire until all of us in the conscious community have that as a general understanding, So I feel like that's where we're at with a lot of the information that we've been sharing, especially here recently. This last couple of months in particular, the things that we've been sharing on this channel, I feel like nobody is talking about. And I feel like it's been like that for a while, but it's not because people are stupid. It's just because not everybody is as committed to it as this group of people are, to understanding the mechanism of reality and how it all works with electromagnetics and, light and sound and all of that. It's very, very complex in one hand, but it's also the most simple understanding you could ever find in the other hand, and that's the paradoxical nature of our reality. Now, we do know that these auroras and these gases and things that we're seeing are a big sign. Some people will chalk this up to geoengineering and HARP, and we're going to talk about cloud seeding and all that shit tonight too as we go through. That's also taking place. And we're going to talk about some reasons of why I think these things are taking place as we go through it all. But these are massive indicators of things that are, they're changing, right? The way that the sun is behaving and reacting, and its effects on the Earth, the coronal mass ejections, the solar flares, and the incredibly high solar activity, the sunspots. All of this. These are big indicators as well. Indicators of what? Well, in my opinion, I'm a believer in catastrophism, and that each cycle, each orbit, or a long cycle, long count, ends in destruction. We know that the nature of this reality, and we go on a micro and macro scale. So if it happens down at the cellular level, then it happens on the biggest level, which to me is the celestial level. It takes something dying for something to be born, right? And out of destruction, new life is formed. And these mass extinction events have showed us that, right? They've showed us that. We're on the 6th mass extinction event of the Earth, and all the previous mass extinction events, things changed drastically, forcing the entire planet to adapt, and all of the species and the animals and people that could not adapt died, right? They died. Most of them, I believe, from being unprepared, because they didn't have plans for a rainy day, when they most likely should have. That's just not being Chicken Little, the sky is falling. That's not being doom and gloom or fear porn. And, a lot of people say, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Well, I'm a believer in that too, but it doesn't mean that you're not logical and smart enough to prepare for a rainy day. To have a plan on things that are probable in the day and age that we live in. If you believe in mass extinction events, and what makes you think that you're not on the cusp of one right now? Looking across our planet, looking across the globe right now, what makes you think you're not on the cusp of one? If you believe in those things. If you don't believe in them, and you believe in an engineered, orchestrated, artificial, man-made culling of the masses and depopulation in the name of sustainable development type of thing, which we have ample evidence that's happened before. It was called World War I and World War II, right? Where the story was identical in both world wars, and they're now recycling the same story for World War III. If you believe that it's only man-made, there's a lot of evidence of that too. But I believe it's a combination of all of the above, and that men behave, and women, as a result of the influence of the things that are in the heavens. So if we have the sun dimming down its light, right, burning off its hydrogen, starting to produce helium, running out of plasma and energy as it continuously blows massive plasmatic ejections and radiation and cosmic rays, which is, conscious information. In my opinion, if it's blowing all of this stuff up at us on a daily basis, and our field is so weak now, it barely blocks any of it, then we're having drastic conscious effects when it comes to humanity, how we operate, how we think, how we behave, right? All of it. How we perceive things. Same thing goes if there is something else that is of a darker energetic nature, and we kind of know that there is, right? We see the South Atlantic anomaly, and it appearing to be charged by something with a negative polarity that's repelling our magnetic poles towards Siberia, as well as we're now seeing CMEs coming in the form of dark energy even. So there's these dark energy plasmatic bursts that are coming from the sun. Where's all the dark energy coming from? We do know that NASA just had a paper, a year and a half ago, that said that when you look at the solar wind and radiation from our sun, that there's more solar wind and radiation that can be accounted for by our actual star that protrudes from our sun. So to me, that means that it's because there's another heavenly body out there that's blowing off some of the same stuff, and it may just not be made up of the same magnetic properties as Sol, our star, is. Matter of fact, a lot of the mythos surrounding Planet X or Nemesis or this comet planet, whatever, is that it doesn't allow light to escape it, and that's why it's like a black hole. That's why it can only be seen in the infrared spectrum. That's why it's invisible to the naked eye till it's right up on you, because the magnetic pull of it is so strong that light itself can't even, escape its grip. So, imagine what happens harvest time when something that is negatively charged like that and is attracted to magnetically to negativity in certain metals comes rolling by. What happens to everybody with iron? An incredibly large amount of iron in their blood. What happens to them? They'll be magnetized right to the fucking star. Or those who have an incredibly dark, abstract, distorted consciousness and spirit. They're going right with it, right? They're going right to it. And if you think about it, too, this whole Saturnian frequency of iron, graphene oxide, and all these things that are being put into us and that are being explored through science, even down to the production of red blood cells and shit in our body, and how they're affected by these different things. What happens to all these people that are so tapped into all of that when this thing comes up, when this thing goes by? They'll be pulled right to it like a magnet. Their soul will be sucked out of their body, clean out of their fucking body, you know? If they have one left, if it hasn't already been destroyed and detached through the processes that, you know, we talk about on the private videos. Excuse me. And they want you disconnected from the Holy Spirit, if you will, from the source, from that signal of consciousness that comes from our Creator. Because if you're in tune with that signal, it raises your vibration, it raises your frequency, and it raises your awareness to such a stature that none of the lower energies can even affect or harm you anymore. To where all the things that used to blind you, that were occulted, that were hidden, that were sealed, right, and that used to blind you and maybe even scare you, are now incredibly obvious to you and pose no threat or no fear to you, because your understanding supersedes anything that you've ever been taught. The children of God are so full of iron, purge it out of you. They are your enemies. They want you dead. I'm not going to agree or disagree. I'm going to say that there are a lot of people that would like to see a lot of us gone that haven't went along with the whole transhumanist agenda. You know, I'll agree with that, and I'll say that. You know, and anybody attacking your carbon nature is probably not an ally or a friend, right? Trying to reduce the carbon footprint and you're made of carbon. Just saying, it's probably not, you know, one of your homies or someone you want to listen to. Just saying. So, major volcanic eruptions have the potential to cause major damage to the world. Now, while the chances of such a catastrophic eruption aren't exactly the highest, we are not prepared for the devastation if it should happen, as experts have noted in an article published in Nature. And I just want you to know, too, that these eruptions, they are, in fact, and can be, in fact, triggered by asteroid impacts. Asteroid impacts can trigger just exponential amounts of seismic and volcanic events all across the globe, right? One big fucking boom and shake to the tectonic plates can actually trigger everything. Okay, so matter of fact, I think it's Nostradamus that talks about, you know, a mountain thrown into the ocean that causes land masses to rise and fall, right? So that's incredible tectonic shifting that's taking place. That's seismic events. That's, you know, what we would call pole shift, and it's triggered by, you know, a celestial impact. Some giant asteroid hitting the earth, you know, ringing it like a fucking bell and shaking it to the point to where, you know, the land starts to shift. Because it can have such a devastating effect to our magnetic polarity, right? If we are protected by a magnetic field that's already in flux from something of an opposing polarity, you know, kind of pushing on it, and the way it's locked with the sun already, you know, causing it to kind of be all over the place and frayed and, you know, wobbling already. Then you have something come in that's got a super large magnetic field to it, and it's highly ionized as well, you know, because it is a large celestial body. It's an asteroid, you know, and it pounds the earth with all of that pressure and all of that force that's essentially equivalent to anything beyond what we know as far as nuclear weapons and their capabilities. You know, they're never going to tell you that. You know, they always try to say, oh, well, it's got the equivalent of this and this amount of TNT. You know, well, they're not telling you that if one actually hit that was, you know, big enough to kill a third of the fucking planet off. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of devastation that would look like. And that man themselves have nothing to compare, no fucking frame of reference to compare to what that would actually look like. Let's see if did I lose my article here? Let me see if I got my article here, guys. Yeah, here we go. Alright, so major volcanic eruptions have the potential to cause major damage to the world. Let me close this off. And while the chances of such a catastrophic eruption aren't exactly the highest, we're not prepared for the devastation should it happen, as we have noted in an article published in Nature. The typical image of a volcano in popular culture isn't a large mountain capped by a hole in the top where the lava and ash erupt. And you can see right here, this is plumes of steam and ash that occur at Washington Mount St. Helens in the early 1980s. According to a U.S. Geological Survey, there may be approximately 1,350 active volcanoes scattered throughout the world, 161 of them being in the U.S., the most famous of which are the volcanoes of Hawaii and Mount St. Helens in Washington. Additionally, volcanoes are thought to exist underwater, though the exact number is unknown. And what do volcanoes do, and how dangerous is an eruption? They played a role in numerous aspects of the planet's history. One of the most famous incidents is the eruption of Vesuvius in Italy, which resulted in the destruction of the Roman localities like Pompeii and Herculaneum. This is a good example of the sheer level of destruction a volcanic eruption can cause. According to researchers, Vesuvius' eruption released 100,000 times more energy than nuclear bombs dropped on Japan's cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II, and blasted in an estimated 1.5 million tons per second of the hot volcanic ash, molten rock, and more. Now, that's pretty fucking intense, too. Now, while the ash killed many of the locals by covering and smothering them, many others faced different fates, their skulls literally exploding, the heat boiling their blood and their brain turning to glass. And this is what I'm trying to tell you about an asteroid impact, too. Same fucking thing, except, on a time-lapse type of deal, it's instantaneous instead of, a little bit of a slower process. But during the eruption process, it's actually instantaneous with a volcano too. So we see them, smoke and, blow off gas and fumes for days before they ever pop. But when one finally goes explosive and erupts, you don't have time to run. You don't have time to hide. There's none of that. And if you're anywhere, within close proximity of it, you're dead. Even if it doesn't turn your brain to glass from the electromagnetic release and the heat and energy and all of that. Then, the smoke, the ash, all of it. And, there's lots of poison that comes out of that in the air and the rain. So, there's a lot of different things that could get you, including, pyroclastic flows and all of that. So, there's a very, very good chance that if you're in close proximity to a volcano, when it erupts, you're just done. And the sad part is especially in the United States, I believe they don't tell not even a quarter of the people that live on top of them or around them that they're on volcanic hot zones. Like I said, I believe the reason that Oklahoma compresses and decompresses in the ground so much is because it's a giant caldera, actually. And that it's got a bunch of magma and shit underneath there, and it's probably going to blow one day. And the entire piece of a map can blow into a volcano, and you never know it, right? We don't know what fills up the chambers underneath the ground we walk on. Same thing New Mexico, same thing California, Alaska, right? I mean, this Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, just goes on and on and on and on. Yellowstone, right? Where all these different active areas, in particular Pacific Northwest and the West Coast, they're covered with it. And if you look at the geological data, especially in the Four Corners area in the Southwest, you can see these patterns in the soil that kind of show that there was evidence of pyroclastic flows, in previous times. That lava covered the ground and made these grooves from the flowing of magma, way back when, whenever that particular cataclysm happened. And we don't know how long it takes for Earth to recover from these. So people can say, well, John, that happened millions of years ago. Or that happened 100,000 years ago. You don't know that. You don't know if our planet recovers fast as shit, and within 300, 400 years, we could go from total devastation and destruction and not even be able to tell if any of it has taken place, besides little traces. You look at the bottom of the ocean, the bottom of the sea, there is, and I mean, it's not even just a little bit. There are, entire cities that are, the size of fucking Manhattan and shit all over the bottom of the ocean floor, that have incredible architecture and, show that there was a very modern edge to the way that they were designing things and the lifestyles that they were living, and they were buried underwater in a fucking instant, in an instant. So, we have no idea, how long it takes, and a lot of them are still very well preserved that are under the water. So we don't know if that's from 10,000 years ago, or we don't know if that's from, 1,000 years ago, is my point. And like I said, through the deception of carbon dating, which to me is history's version of the PCR test, they are able to pull the wool over our eyes and, get us in that mindset of gradualism, of everything takes place incrementally, super, super slow, over a long period of time. And that, basically the celestial clock, it doesn't even blink in your lifetime, and that's also to make you feel incredibly insignificant. That way you won't try to do anything impactful in the world. It's like, oh, why bother? You know what I mean? I'm so insignificant that, this little, my life is nothing but a little millisecond blip on the map of what's taking place throughout human history, when it's probably not as accurate as what you're being told at all. Now, it says that Vesuvius was just one example of eruption. As bad as it may have been, many have been much worse. So I always wonder about that. Yes, true, but the end of the times prophecy seems set in stone. Okay, we can go there. As far as end times prophecies, okay? As far as end time prophecies, first and foremost, let me just say this. To me, prophetical text, they are warnings, they're heads up against things that could take place. Not every one of them absolutely play out the way that they are said to play out. They are events that are seen, so they can happen on very different levels from what you've been told. Just because they're prophetical events doesn't mean they have to happen in the physical world in the way that you perceive it. if that makes sense. Especially with the Bible, because the Bible is probably one of the most esoteric, occult books in the world, you know? So a lot of what the Bible has in it is not just allegory for different stories. So they're not all exoteric and external at all, right? Most of them are allegory and they're metaphors for the spiritual and alchemical process that takes place within each and every one of us during the process of transmutation or transfiguration into illumination and enlightenment. They've just put it out in plain sight. That way nobody will recognize it when they see it. And, we live in fear of destruction and death because the prophecy said so. And, that's kind of like a tactic of control as well. So we're constantly looking over our shoulder saying, oh, well, the prophecy said this person would become president and then it's all over, So it's like, what's all over, though? Are they talking about an old paradigm, an old way of seeing things, an old perception? See, that's where you have to get really, really clear on how you read spiritual texts and prophecies and all of that. Because if you take away your preconceived notions and you look at it at like a first person perspective and you look at it as these things are about me and these are metaphysical and they're metaphorical, right? You'll come away with a whole different perception of scripture and all that than you would have as if you already had it in your mind that the only way to look at it was, the physical, way to look at it. So, just saying. Now, the two deadliest eruptions in recorded history both took place in Indonesia in the late 1800s. The second deadliest is an 1883 eruption at Krakatoa, which destroyed much of the island and surrounding archipelago. It killed over 36,000 people and was felt thousands of kilometers and heard worldwide. The deadliest was Mount Tambora eruption, which may have killed over 250,000 people. And this is... Did I say illustrated? And you can see, right, the pyroclastic flow and all of it being spewed out into... You don't use your left brain anymore? That's funny as hell. Well, you still need that left brain. You still need that... you still need that logical side. We can't make only hard decisions. I do agree, though. It's like I use my intuitive, creative side, my feminine side, far more than I ever have at any point in my life now. But I can overdo that too. All things in moderation, even moderation. I can get to the point to where I overdo the heart side of things and overdo the intuitive creative side of things, and sometimes I need to take it back down to earth a little bit and put that left brain logical spin on shit too. So I mean, don't discount left brain altogether. We need it, but we can't just be seeing our entire world through left brain and letting that dictate our reality. That's for sure, right? It's there to assist with our reality. Because the right brain, transmits signals and information to it, and then it's able to tap into our speech centers and all of that, and project that out into the world for us through its phonetics. You find God within through meditation. My thoughts, Him, your love for your Creator, drives your spiritual people, and drive it till it stops, because it does stop. What? What are you talking about, man? Where the fuck are you coming up with this shit? The love for the Creator, to me, never stops. It's infinite. That's the whole point. It's infinite. Maybe your love for the Creator stops. And it doesn't. We have lulls and we have times of doubt, sure. People have lost faith. I've lost faith at times, man. You know, it's hard to be consistent, especially for years upon years upon years. You know, I've been doing this for years now. I'm surprised I'm still even doing it, if you want the honest to God truth. Because I've been to that many dark places, you know, as I've been on the path. It's like, damn, how am I still believing at this point? But I am. And, you know, I think that that's what holds all of us together. Is not like, it's a knowing. It's knowing that there's something divine and special and a spark that's inside of each and every one of us. So that gives credence to that we came from something like that. We were made in the image of the Creator. So there's got to be a divine, you know, spark from whatever we came out of, because we're conscious and aware, so we couldn't be made by something that's unconscious and unaware, if that makes sense. So something that was a thinking, conscious, you know, experiencing type of being had to be able to, you know, be what created us, or we wouldn't have the abilities to be a conscious, experiencing type of being either, right? It's only logic on that one, you know. Dave was laughing. It does go on forever. Now, in the modern day, the most recent catastrophic volcanic eruption is Hunga Haipai eruption in Tonga, which climaxed in January 15th, 2022. Death toll was small, but the eruption thought to be the strongest since Krakatoa. The eruption caused tsunamis that hit the Pacific Islands and the coast of North and South America, Russia, New Zealand, and Japan. This and the resulting damages illustrate the real danger of a modern-day volcanic eruption, economic devastation. And that's the thing, too, you know. We're now seeing FEMA, you know, get amped up and get prepared once again, you know, with the whole funeral cost, shit like that. And once again, these grants and all of this for different types of destructions and cataclysms, which is, you know, kind of like an indicator that they're getting ready for something more. You know, the government has made big business off of natural disasters as well. You know, so even if they're the ones geoengineering it and fucking sending the tornado to your backyard, you know, they're getting paid. It doesn't matter if it happens naturally or not, you know. So we know that that's true as well. But the devastation in these areas after they've been hit by hurricanes, after they've been hit by earthquakes, right? Guys, it's like you don't want to be in one of those zones, you know. First and foremost, it allows for the most corruption to take place you could ever experience. And I don't think it's the people that are necessarily being so corrupt. Yeah, sure, there's looting and things like that happen in an area after it's devastated. Naturally, people are desperate. But as in most of those times when people's backs are against the wall, like what we've seen in Houston, Texas with Hurricane Harvey was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. What were they called? Like the Cajun Navy or something like that. You know, this is all these people who experienced Katrina and shit where they were stuck. Nobody came to help them. You know, a lot of them died down there. They were treated terribly down there. You know, and I do believe it had a lot to do with their economic disposition and the color of their skin and all that. I believe it had a lot to do with that. And they're from the South. It had a lot to do with those factors. And I also believe that was engineered, if you will, too. Just like Harvey, right? That sat on the bank essentially for like an hour picking up speed before he came in, so shit like that makes you kind of question, because we know that it's not a hypothesis, or a guess. There is in fact technology that is able to create weather, and in particular hurricanes and tornadoes, and there is technology that has the ability to create volcanic eruptions and earthquakes and anything else you can imagine, and I believe they have been very tactical in who experiences what. Like Kentucky, people having the ability to farm and raise livestock and, do it privately and take care of themselves. And then they experience all these fucking tornadoes and all, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, that's weird. California and the fires, like, that's weird. Why are these places going through this, and it just so happens that they are at prime positions of, selling and creating, livestock supplies and things that people would need during hard times, Just because you don't know doesn't mean it's not going to happen. This turns 4 times, then it stops. This is the end of our ride. Okay, well, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about when you say it turns 4 times and it stops. This is the end of our ride. This is the end of your ride, maybe. And that's on you. My ride ends when it ends, and I'll be happy with the outcome, no matter how it ends, as long as it ends with me going to a higher place consciously and becoming a new being, a evolved and developed being that is able to exist in a higher dimensional space. That's what I'm shooting for. Says the researchers noted that the eruption significantly hit Tonga's economy and broke undersea communication cables. But the eruption's peak only lasted 11 hours, preventing more ash and gas release. I see it says, hey John, I believe they started in the Vietnam War to use the monsoons and shit to their advantage during war on at least... Yes, okay, so I had a theory about that too. And I thought... I didn't do a video on it because I thought it made me sound like an absolute lunatic. So I'm very glad that you brought that up. I don't believe it was just with the Vietnam War. I believe it was also with the Korean War as well. Right? Think about the concept of North and South Korea and North and South Egypt, Upper and Lower Egypt, right? These are spiritual principles, right? The Viet Cong and, what they did there, in Vietnam as well against people that were essentially kind of like natives to the land or, anytime. And there's even... I just seen an article, too, by FEMA trying to integrate with native communities now, too, reservations. Why would that be so? Why is there an effort mounting now to get FEMA on good terms with these protected lands of these reservations that are owned by Aboriginal and Native peoples? Why would that be on the docket now? Anybody know why they would want to do that? Why would they want to get their hands in a reservation or get their hands on Aboriginal or Natives on protected lands? Does anybody in the chat know the answer to that question? I believe I do, but I would love to see what other people think when it comes to that. I would love to see what people think. The Wheel of Time. Well, the Wheel of Time is the procession of the equinoxes to me, and time is infinite to me. We are infinite. We are a piece of the infinite, which makes us infinite as well. We're on a constant spiritual transition, downward and upward spiral. We're spinning in both directions. Higher, lower nature, the whole nine. But I would love to see why people think that FEMA is making a conscious effort right now to create good relations with a lot of the different Native American reservations here in the United States. Why would they do that? Why would they need to do that is my question. Because I have an idea. And we'll see what pops up in the chat here. But my idea is that these lands are protected. Police, government, military, and whatnot can't come onto these lands and disturb them. That's why they're reservations, right? It's reserved land. It can't be fucked with by these different authorities. And a lot of these Native American tribes and communities, in particular the Hopi, have prophecies that talk about when, World War breaks out, when cataclysms come and destruction comes, that people of all races and colors will flock to their land for safety. And that when this time comes, that they will welcome all of them, everybody who comes, they'll bring them all in. So, think about that. If you have patches of land that during a disaster, you can't go in and take everybody's Second Amendment from them. If you got patches of land where you can't go in and strip down their fucking cabinets and take all their food and say that it's possibly poisoned or been exposed to something as some, false reason that you're given for being there in the first place, like, a natural gas line leaked or whatever, right? Like, they can't go on reservations and do that shit and take them over. So if they can get into a buddy system with them, and get access to them, then those won't even be safe havens for people either. And that's why I believe they're strategizing and putting so much money and so much effort into that right now, is because they know that it's that close and it's at hand. So, they don't want you to have any place to go escape or to be safe or to be outside of the bounds of the lawless society that you will be in as a result of destruction and cataclysm. Rapport building, yeah, but why would they? That's what I'm saying, though. But why the need to build a rapport, though? And I think it's obvious. Yeah, Stamo, you're right, man. You're right. I do apologize. I forget that sometimes. Moving forward, had this happen, it would have devastated densely populated areas and could have caused severe problems for the global supply chain. The fact that this didn't happen is what made two researchers behind this article, Michael Cassidy from Miami, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so here, now we're going to jump to another one here. So I need to make it a little bit bigger. I'm blind as a bat right now. Dance in the plaza in front of you? Yeah, well, and you see here's another article talking about volcanoes, huge volcanic eruptions. Time to prepare. They're giving you the heads up. They're telling you, it's time to start looking into options on how you're going to take care of yourself during these situations. And I am a firm believer that if we sow good seeds, that good things happen to us, no matter, what that is. So it's all about on how we treat each other. It's all about on, being giving and loving and kind and all of that. That's going to essentially reinforce your magnetic field, your aura. Your aura is your shield. It is your magnetic field, okay? The number one way to deposit positive karma into said aura and said magnetic field is simple. It's through charity. It's through giving, right? That's the number one way. That's why churches and politicians and all of that, that's why they do that shit. They go volunteer at, homeless shelters and shit like that. They do it not only for their public image, because they want to look like they help people, but they do it because you get no bigger deposit of spiritual, energy when you do, give to someone or help to someone. So, they don't want you knowing these things, because if you did, you would be trying to do acts of kindness everywhere you went, because that would be your true protection, right? Remember that the generals and the kings of the earth, they're calling for the mountains and the rocks to fall on them and hide them from the face of the one who sits on the throne. The Hopi prophecy talks about that men will disappear like so much smoke, and that some will appear as if untouched. That's because your aura is your magnetic field. That is your Merkaba. That's your vessel. That is your spaceship. That is you. That will be your field, your magnetic field during the time of destruction, when the Earth's magnetic field has, officially collapsed and is going into full-on reversal. The only thing that will keep you safe, the only thing that will keep you out of harm's way, is if you are walking around charged with positivity and light and have the ability to repel negativity, violence, pain, destruction, right? If you've got an aura that is depleted and lacking, and you're trying to pull in energies, especially negatively charged energies, you're going to pull bad experiences to yourself. And this is why we try so hard on this channel to truly understand manifestation and attraction and things like that, because I feel like that's the key to survive these things, right? Like, I don't believe that, Jesus was a super, super pious person, and that he didn't have a side of him that was like a regular man or anything like that. Like, I think he just understood how it all worked. And that's why you're told to turn the other cheek. It's not to make you be a pussy. It's because if you engage with, negative energy, you entangle yourself with it, for one, right, and connect to it. And you feed into it, and you make it get bigger, if you engage with it. So and then essentially, your aura is filled with that darkness, that animosity. Essentially, that's telling the universe, and especially because you're focusing on it, your thoughts and all of that are focusing on negativity. That's telling the universe that you want more negative experience, right? And remember, the universe will give you what you want, what you're asking for, based on your mind state. And then that's charging your magnetic field with those same energies too, right? So in order to feed that field, it needs more of those same kind of experiences. And that's telling the universe you haven't learned the karmic lessons of that type of energy. So you need more of it in order to overcome the experience. So when you're walking around and you're doing acts of charity, acts of kindness, being selfless, peaceful, loving, all of these things, right? That's telling the universe that you want more of that experience, that you need more of that in your life. And the bigger deposits of energy that we create of positivity and of light, the more of a protection we have when the entire magnetic field goes down on the earth. Because we'll be butt naked, That's why meteors will fall from the sky having men's names on it. How can they have a man's name on it, these meteors? Well, it's because they have absolutely zero protection, right? They're calling it right to them. Their energetic frequency or vibration is fine-tuned, if you will, to receive one of these meteors. So it'll have their name on it. There'll be no avoiding it. They'll be absolutely magnetized towards it. We want to put ourselves in a position to where we are not magnetized towards anything that is negative or destructive. Matter of fact, if we're in the right state of energy, we repel those kind of things, right? What about the firmament? The firmament, to me, is the magnetic field, right? And we know that it says in the Bible that islands and mountains will be removed from their place, and the sky will recede back like a scroll. Well, if you think about what that actually means, and if the firmament is in fact the magnetic field, kind of like a plasmatic shield, if you will, around the earth, if it's going to and fro, or scrolling across the sky, then thinking about magnetics and the way that is, that's because there's like a major disruption in that, and there'll be no protection. So it'll, in essence, roll away, right? There'll be no more field to keep the radiation away from you, to keep all of the cosmic energy from coming in. And we know that radiation and energy actually affects consciousness. And if it is in fact a dark star or a highly toxic comet or whatever that's super ionized, that energy is going to have an effect on consciousness too, right? So if it's a highly toxic comet, it could make you incredibly sick. There's no field to protect you. There's no veil. There's no firmament to protect you, and we know that it's going to split, right? It's going to roll up like a scroll. So that's going to happen, and that's as a result of flux in the field, right? Causing it to destabilize and reverse its polarity. It's going to wave like a damn flag. So, you're going to have those type of effects and those type of experiences, and there's no telling how you will receive that information. Remember, our DNA contains the genetic material necessary to receive these upgrades, and these upgrades are then sent throughout our nervous system, like our electrical wiring, to our brains, to our pineals, right? Our pineal glands, our magnetic poles of our body, which connect to our ability to receive the conscious signal from the stars, right? And the positive, and you're going to get it positive or negative. It all depends on what you're aligned towards, what your polarity is. And that's going to depend on how you experience that. And if you're not in a high state of consciousness, I imagine that a lot of these things are going to have, pretty scary effects on people. That's why it talks about in the Holy Prophecy that, we'll see entities and creatures and stuff from essentially other dimensions, right? Some that we had seen from the past, some that we've never seen before, right? And so, not understand the nature of these things. That's because all of the dimensions will be able to be accessed at once. We won't have that protective firmament over us anymore that keeps this one third dimensional space kind of locked into the illusion that we're in now, right? To where everybody, hears and sees in a specific energetic frequency range. So we kind of share a collective space or reality. Well, if the veil is gone, there's no limitation on perception on what you hear and see. So your reality could be totally fucking different than my reality, and that would be based on how much you're in alignment, right, energetically. So if your chakra system is totally out of alignment and you have not overcome traumas from your past, and you have your bottom three chakras blocked, let's say, right? And like your root chakra, which represents stability and security, that being blocked, and all of that frequency coming in, which will trigger activation and awakening in everyone, right? So that's why it's important to get them all jacked into the matrix. That way they can't shift into that frequency. You know, they're locked into an artificial frequency, you know, 5th generation frequency that's already, you know, being transmitted through all of the Starlink satellites and all that shit. But if you experience that frequency, you know, you're going to have the gifts and abilities of that frequency. Your DNA is going to respond to that frequency, you know, and you're going to be activated by that frequency. So if you're in a very, very dark space, right, that's essentially going to turn things into hell for you at a very, very intense level. And I think that's why a lot of people will be seeking death and won't find it, because, you know, the curse of death will be broken as well, because all of the dimensional spaces and reality that hold shit together will be broken. So death won't bind us anymore. We won't be able to die because we'll be, you know, outside of the conscious illusion or the cube or the trap of the matrix system that we live in now. So people are going to be, in essence, you know, heaven will be on earth, right? Heaven will be on earth. Jesus brought heaven down, right? And it's a war in heaven. And you hear heaven and heaven and heaven and heaven over and over and over. Heaven, you know, it means the celestial spheres or the heavenly bodies, right? It's it's space, which outer space is the outer psyche, right, of human consciousness. The outer psyche just means outside of the collective psyche within planet Earth, right? So planet Earth being micro, macro, you have your third eye, which is your wormhole or your bottomless pit or your portal, right, into the conscious realm. Well, the planet, in my opinion, is a collective third eye, if you will, for all of the human species. And it allows us to receive the conscious signals and frequencies from the sun and any other celestial bodies that are passing. So, you know, like I said, if you got a dark star passing that is got such a strong magnetic field, it doesn't even allow light to escape and gives off nothing but distortion and, you know, chaotic, poisonous frequency, well, that's going to affect people tremendously, and people will probably kill themselves once their eyes are opened and they see the true nature of reality, especially the ones who cling on to reality the way that they do. You know, and that's the new normal, right? The new normal applies to so many different things and so many different ways of looking at things, you know. So I think they're trying to get all of us kind of ready for a shift and change in vibration and frequency all over the planet, and it will be due, you know, to the catastrophic changes, or the catastrophic changes will be a result of the energetic frequency shift, one or the other. But they're telling you to prepare, right? To forecast and try to manage globally. The risks are greater than people think. Xfinity, I'm not sure if I'm catching on, so I do apologize for that. Let's move forward here. You homeschool your son. I think that's a very wise thing to do. Honestly, you know, why would you, in this day and age especially, and I'm not saying that everybody has the luxury to be able to do that. Some people don't work from home and they don't have significant others to chip in and help with the children or anything like that, so they have to, you know, in essence, send their children to, which is just fucking